So as you can see, the Micra is yet again up on jack stands, which really isn't anything new at this point. However, today it is because we are making a full stainless steel exhaust system for it. As you might have seen from the previous episodes, we've already made the manifold and installed the turbo. So the plan today is to just continue the exhaust system from the turbo all the way out the back. So let me start off by showing you guys what we're actually working with. This right here is the equal length-ish manifold, which I fabricated in the first episode of this series, and this right here is the turbo. As of right now, this is where the exhaust ends, so that's not really good. That's a lot of unburnt fuel there and all over there. As you might have seen in the last episode, this is how I got the car running, but obviously it is just temporary. So basically in this video, I'm going to be making the entire exhaust. We're going to be starting off by making the downpipe, which is going to go under the engine. After that, I'm going to clamp on a piece of straight pipe. That's going to take us all the way almost back to the fuel tank and put another clamp there. That's because I don't have a cat for the car yet, so temporarily we're just going to run it like that. After that, at the fuel tank, I'm going to have a few bends. That's going to get us around the fuel tank and then over the axle, and then another clamp there which will continue the exhaust into a back box, and that will be it. So let's start off with the downpipe. This right here is a piece of 10mm stainless steel which I got laser cut after a CAD design which I made, and this is the flange for the downpipe which connects to the turbo. It's a bit awkward to get in frame, but there it is bolted up to the turbo. Now, unlike the manifold, which I fully designed in CAD before actually making it out of stainless steel, the rest of the exhaust we're just going to eyeball. Hence this 90-degree bend which I've already drawn on with Sharpie, and because it kind of looks like it's going to work, I'm going to cut it and hope for the best. So this right here is the downpipe. Well, part of it. As you can see, I've put a few marks on it there, and if I tack it in this position, we should have it sitting just about perfect. So there's the first piece of the downpipe tacked onto the flange. Next up, I need to design some sort of cover that's going to feed into the main pipe for the wastegate. With the first part of the downpipe all welded together, it was time to start working on getting it to go under the engine. To achieve this, I cut a small piece of straight pipe and welded it to a 90-ish degree bend, and this was the result. Next up, I decided to weld the flex pipe. And before going any further, I decided to drill the hole for the O2 sensor and weld in the new bung. So this is what we have done so far. We have the entire downpipe going down into the O2 sensor and the flex pipe right under the oil pan. So next up, I want to weld a piece of straight pipe down right behind the engine mount, and then cut an angled piece of pipe that will bring it up and into the tunnel. To continue the exhaust, I cut two angled pieces of pipe and got a straight piece of pipe, which looking back on it now was not a good idea because the pipes were a bit tricky to weld together, and because of that I got some fairly bad welds, but it kind of worked. But anyway, after a good bit of work, the downpipe was finally done. With the downpipe done, it was time to continue the exhaust towards the fuel tank. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, I do not have a cat for this car yet, so for the time being, I just clamped this straight piece of pipe after the downpipe. And onto the other end of said straight piece of pipe, I decided to clamp the next section of the exhaust. However, to do that, we first had to make the next section of the exhaust. It was clear that the exhaust would take a 90-degree turn at the fuel tank, so all I had to do was measure and cut a piece of straight pipe and weld it onto the bend. And to no surprise, it worked out fairly well. Next up, it was time to measure and cut another piece of straight pipe and weld it onto another bend. And at this point, we were making some very good progress because it started to look like an actual exhaust. Next up, it was time to continue the exhaust to and over the axle, and to do this, I welded a straight piece of pipe into a 45-degree bend to kick the exhaust over the rear axle and level it out using another 45-degree bend. So, I've gotten to the point where I have the exhaust almost fully complete. I've got the downpipe done, going under the engine, back up into the tunnel, straight down to the fuel tank and around, and then over the axle. Problem is, I don't have the back box for the exhaust yet, so I can't fully finish the exhaust. Reason being, I know for a fact that I want to bring the pipe from there to here, and I know I'm going to do a 45 degree into a piece of pipe into another 45 degree. However, I don't know where the box will sit, so I want to have the box before I design the last piece of pipe. In the meantime, however, I think I should do something about this and make some exhaust hangers to go into here. These are the original exhaust hanger bushings. So we're going to have 2 pieces of 8mm stainless bar welded onto here going into the bushings. I'll probably try to do something similar, make some brackets there and maybe also somewhere around the fuel tank. This really wasn't anything exciting. It was just cutting some piece of bar, welding it and then welding it onto the exhaust. Not amazing welds, not my best work, but it worked. So up at the front we are done. It's not great, but it's gonna work. And then here at the back, what I said I'd do is weld a piece of bar there. That's gonna go out and hook into here, which I made a little bracket for the exhaust hanger bushing.
You're not sad again, are you, Splashgvng?
Despite the welds not being pretty and the hangers not being perfect, they still worked and the exhaust was finally holding up its own weight. With the hangers done, I also decided to make some sort of gasket for the downpipe, which kind of worked. So it is now the next day and surprisingly this has already arrived. I'm actually super happy with it. This is like literally a mirror finish and I reckon we could polish this up too. I'm fairly happy with how it sits like this. So we've got 2 45 degree bends. One of them is going to clamp onto the inlet of the back box. And the other 45 is going to go up here, somewhat like that, and now I need to figure out how to join them together. So the pipework for the exhaust is officially done. However, this is still on the jack stand because being very heavy, it can't just clamp onto the end of the exhaust. It's gonna droop down, so we need to make some hangers. Well, that is absolutely lovely to see. The exhaust is finally done. I've spent a good few weeks making it and seeing it finally complete is very nice. All we got to do now is put it together properly. Which means, first of all, this middle section is coming off because... Right, fast forward a bit, I've kind of managed to fix that up. Should do the job. Now, next up it is time to assemble the exhaust. However, since these clamps aren't the greatest at properly sealing the exhaust, I'm going to use some of this exhaust sealant paste, whatever it is, and smear it all over the places where it joins and tighten it up. So, the exhaust is officially done. I think you know what we're going to do next. So this has been a huge milestone for the building of this car. Although it's obviously not perfect, I'm still very happy with how the exhaust came out. Obviously there is still a lot to be done. For example, we're still technically naturally aspirated. There's no intake piping from the turbo to the engine and a load of other stuff, but we're just going to figure that out as we go. But that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. I definitely enjoyed making the exhaust, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.